What's good, little bro?
What's up? That was looking good. Hello, I'm Kai.
And I'm Nick.
And today you're watching IQ Too High.
On today's episode, we're going to be talking about the Charlie Kirk assassination. So Kai, why did we decide to talk about Charlie Kirk today?
Well, I chose this topic because I really feel like it showcases how in the US, even outside of legally binding things like hate crimes and stuff, even if your freedom of speech isn't like that, you can be shot, you can be tried and stuff by the public, not by the government, but by the public, right? And so it's really it's honestly kind of worrisome to me.
Yeah, because in reality, I think Charlie Kirk, he was mostly just speaking opinions, and he was more of an activist rather than a political figure who's actually making choices and actions.
Yeah. Like, he was not in the government. He was just a person who believed something, and those beliefs got him killed.
Right. I think that's what makes it a really tragic situation, especially too, because it was at a big area where there's people gathered, and it's just for a shooting like that to happen there, it's really scary for some people, I think, and a lot of people don't take that into account.
I agree.
I feel like especially it was more tragic because it was in front of his wife and children.
That's true. I do agree with that, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's especially an important detail because I think it kind of just shows how Charlie Kirk was much more of a regular person compared to actual political big figures. It's like when things like that happen to very known leaders around the world, that's not really taken into account as opposed to Charlie Kirk.
Yeah, that's true.
So Kai, since this episode is centered around the suppression of freedom of speech, why don't we get a little more into that?
Well, I feel that within the U.S., well, not even I feel, I know, within the U.S., every single person has their right to freedom of speech. It's a part of the Constitution, you know? It's not even like, if you're coming here, you can't have freedom of speech. Every person who's within the United States has that right? However, there are some exceptions to this. Like within schools, you sort of have to follow their rules. You can't just go all willy-nilly saying whatever you want, right? And there was actually a Supreme Court case about this called the Hazelwood versus Comer case. And in that case, the Supreme Court actually deemed it that, schools have the right to not just let you say whatever you want. So legally speaking, if it's a school rule, you can't just violate it. And I mean, on that note, we had our interviewer Jackson. He's interviewing Jesse Goodsky, the principal of Linwood High School, and so we're just gonna go and see what he has to say about it. You take it, Jackson.
Take it away, Jackson.
Thank you, and here's my interview with Mr. Goodsky. I asked him 4 questions. First one was, what is your general opinion on freedom of speech and how important is it? He had answered, freedom of speech matters because it means people are allowed to share their thoughts, ideas, and beliefs without being punished just for having an opinion. It is a big part of living in a democracy. It allows people to ask questions, speak up about things that matter to them, and work towards change. At the same time, freedom of speech does not mean you can say anything at any time. In schools especially, there are limits. Speech cannot threaten others, cause harm, or get in the way of learning. With the freedom to speak comes the responsibility to use your words in a way that is respectful and safe. When freedom of speech is working well, it helps us listen to different viewpoints, learn from one another, and build understanding even when we disagree. Second question I asked him was, how do you feel that the school environment either encourages or limits freedom of speech? He had answered, I might have answered this a bit in question 1, but I'll try to answer more. Schools are meant to be places where students can share ideas, ask questions, and express themselves. You should feel safe speaking up in class discussions. Student groups and school environment activities, that kind of open conversations helps everyone learn. At the same time, schools also have a responsibility to keep people safe and focused on learning. That means freedom of speech at schools can be limited when speech becomes hurtful, threatening, or disruptive, or when it interferes with someone else's right to feel safe and learn. So in school setting, freedom of speech is about balance. Staff should encourage students to express themselves and their opinions, but they also expect everyone to use their voice in ways that are respectful, inclusive, and appropriate for the learning environment. The third question we had asked him was, do you think that freedom of speech should always be allowed regardless of what it is? He had answered, no way. Freedom of speech is not absolute. It is a very important right, but it has limits, especially when speech causes harm. Freedom of speech does not protect speech that threatens others, encourages violence, or seriously interferes with someone else's safety or ability to learn. In schools, those limits matter even more because part of our job is to make sure everyone feels safe and supported. The goal is not to silence people. The goal is to balance the right to speak with the responsibility to not harm others. Having a voice matters, and so does how that voice is used. The fourth and final question we had asked him is, should people be able to react to another's use of speech however they want within the law? He had answered, people are allowed to respond to speech, but that does not mean they can react however they want. Even if a reaction is legal, it still matters whether it is respectful, safe, and appropriate for the situation. In a school community, reactions that intimidate, harass, or escalate conflict are not okay because they can harm others and disrupt learning. We expect people to express disagreement, set boundaries, or speak up in ways that do not create more harm. And back to you, Nick.
Thank you for that, Jackson. Now, after hearing the principal talk about it and also the political and more laws side of it, I wanted to get more into the social side because this situation, I think it goes way beyond just like what is said in the Constitution and things like that. Because, I mean, speaking of social, I want to talk about social media. So remember on that day?
Oh, yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like all over TikTok.
Instagram, stuff like that. Yeah. I saw it on so many things.
So like at first you just see like news about it, right? And it's like, wow, that's crazy. But then you also see people's reactions.
Yeah, like celebrating and stuff.
Yeah, like, celebrating. So at first, like I saw people mourning, but then I saw people celebrating, and that kind of like that was off-putting to me, especially because he was killed for like saying what he like thought of the country, like his opinion. Basically, he got killed for being an activist, which I think is really messed up.
It's messed up.
So it's like. Yeah, and I want to hear what you think about that.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I mean, he was an activist, even if he wasn't an activist that a lot of people liked. Like, you know, I know a lot of people who did not like him, but they think that his death was just horrible, unjustified and stuff, right? And the way I like to think about it is like from perspective, like you can't really have equal freedom of speech. Like you can't have it without looking at it from this perspective that, you know, if you look at the past, like something like slavery might have been seen as perfectly fine, and like going against it might have been seen as controversial, right? And so like being an activist back then about that might have been like the same situation where people are like, oh, this dude's crazy, this dude's insane, he's talking about this, right? And so like looking at it from perspective, even if, you know, we don't agree with what he says, right, you can't really have like freedom of speech, you can't really have progress, you can't have progression like that without having multiple perspectives. And so I think the fact that his perspective was just shut down, even though we'll never know what it would have been like in the future, like that, to me, that's just like, it's not okay.
Yeah, so, that's good. I'm glad you said that. Thank you.
Yeah, and just growing up as like a young man in this country, and all the other just young men looking for just a mentor, just somebody that they feel like they can speak their opinion, speak their voice. And just having that as Charlie Kirk is just, and then him being murdered is just such a letdown for many young men in America who are just looking for a mentor or a leader to look up to.
Right. Thank you for your perspective, Simon. I enjoyed hearing that input from you. So now that you've all had a chance to hear about the whole rights situation and the challenges in protecting those rights, I kind of want you guys to think, but do you think someone should be killed for speaking their opinion in public? I personally don't think so. And that kind of scares me because, in the future, if people are just going to get killed for saying what they think, then I don't know. What do you think, Kai?
I think that just about wraps it up. You know, we talked about how the law impacts freedom of speech, how there's a social aspect. Some people think they can just take whatever they want into their hands and do whatever they want if someone says something they don't like, even though it's wrong. And I mean, like, it's a bad thing. I think we should, get rid of that within our society. I'm Kai, and this is Nick, and we're signing off for IQ Too High.
Remember to tip your waitresses and keep your
IQ too high. We are Charlie Kirk.
Can't sing.